dnešním díle školního podcastu uvidíte
the word you are, using the most. And it's nahoru. It's in Czech uphill. Up.
So by bringing the horse up to the seat, you don't need as much influence of restriction. You don't need to drive so much. You can take the existing motion and shape it. For instance, one of these things you hear a lot of people say, sit deep.
Mm-hmm.
And Naharu is kind of almost the exact opposite.
Yeah.
If I need to feel it in my horse's mouth through the bit, I've already missed it in my seat because it travels from the tail to my seat to through the horse's neck to its mouth. The mouth is where it ends up the last. Well, releasing the constriction is a very good thing. But why down?
Dobrý den, dámy a pánové, fandové jezdectví a toho klasického obzvlášť. Vítejte v dalším díle našeho školního jezdeckého podcastu. Dovolte mi, abych vám poděkoval za vaši podporu na sociálních sítích, na YouTube a rád bych vás pozval na síť Forendors, kam už začínáme dávat naše první příspěvky, zejména hotové podcasty a první lekce. Dnešní díl bude opět jedním z těch, kdy budete potřebovat titulky nebo znalost angličtiny, protože hostem dnešního podcastu je Mr. Arne Koets. Arne, welcome here.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure that you are here in that chair. And before we start, two things. One thing is my personal apologize because English is not my native language, so please excuse my mistakes. But luckily, we people from equitation are used to use body language, so I hope we will figure out when we get tight somewhere. And the second thing is a kind of condition, because whoever sat into that historical chair kind of agree with condition that at the end of a podcast, he will answer the question. He will draw from that Spanish hat. We call it Spanish hat of truth. By the way, I received it from Jeff. It's from Cordoba. But important thing is that it's filled by the questions you will draw at the end, and you will answer that truly. Do you agree with that condition?
Sure.
It's perfect. So we can start. And if you will feel that we are pretty tired, we are, because we just finished a 2-day clinic. So Arne's voice is pretty worn out, but I hope we will be fine. So, as always, very first question is about how did you get in touch with the horses? Because I think I know you like 12, 13 years-ish. And your life before you became world famous riding instructor, it's a kind of mystery for me. So can you tell us what is the story of Arne Koets?
Well, as far as a riding life goes, my early life didn't have anything to do with horses at all. Nobody in my family had anything to do with horses. So I was interested in military history from a very early age. And I started looking into Viking history and, sword fighting and things like that, and a bit of, fantasy films, the lot. Mm-hmm. And then I went into reenactment, so the playing historical things and mostly battles and swords and sword fighting, and that came into the martial arts side of things and looking at historical sources to reconstruct martial arts. And then I also got an armor, like a full suit of armor to do that. And then a friend of mine decided they were going to start a jousting group. And thereby they went like, oh, you have armor. We need a fourth guy. Go and learn how to ride. And I went, okay. So then I found a group and like a society and started learning how to ride. And I was 21 at that point. So I wasn't that young, I wasn't that old. And all I really wanted to do at the time was to learn to ride well enough in order to joust. Mm-hmm. And at the time I didn't think anything of it. And then, I very quickly started doing, hitting people with lances from a horse at a gallop. Yes, I did all that. However, it never set right with me that I didn't really get to the point where I wanted to be to really do the thing that a historical person would have done. And then I got an opportunity to learn to ride properly only about 10 years later. Mm. So that is when I got invited to the Hoofdrijdsschule by Wolfgang Krischke and Christine Krischke. And then that's when my first ever shoulder in I rode in 2010.
No.
So it's really not that long ago. And then things kind of developed from there. And the only reason that I started giving clinics is because I kind of got roped into it by another friend who was at the Hoofdschule at the time, who literally just arranged an appointment for me without even asking me. And he sat on my sofa, called somebody up and went like, oh, by the way, at that date, you're doing a clinic, whether you like it or not. And then I had to start. And then I started teaching. And then that went really well because I had already been learning how to teach martial arts for years and years. So it was relatively easy for me to learn how to teach riding, seat, movement in general. And thereby I could convey what little I understood from what I consider the genius of the Christus.
Yeah, you kind of steal me a question because it was one of these, how did you get in touch with the Christus, with the Royal School in Boekenburg? So you answered it. Yeah, so it means, or maybe the question is, what was your first horse? It was before Boekenburg?
Yeah. I got my first horse was a horse called Faust. Mm-hmm. And the first horse I bought for myself, we first leased it as the jousting group. And then this horse threw everybody off. And at some point, this is a long time ago, the guy who was mostly in charge and sort of teaching, he wasn't even teaching that much, he got thrown off and he lay on the floor. And he insisted that somebody got on that horse to teach it a lesson. Mm-hmm. Whilst he had a concussion, so he couldn't even stand up. At least that's what he insisted I did. So I got onto this horse and I stayed on. And from that moment on, everybody wanted me to ride that horse. So the only reason I bought it is because nobody else could ride it. And we got into this sort of rapport that we weren't in a big fight like he had been with everybody else. That's the only reason I really got that one. And I got him to joust and I got him to accept armor and I got him to do all the things. And but he was already quite old and things like that, and that was my first horse.
Because every rider has, the horse of the destiny. Is this one the one or the later ones? If you can pick one who really changed your life, what horse was that?
Well, that would be Maximilian, which is still at the moment my main horse. So this was the main horse that really I had to learn to teach a horse something proper, as opposed to the basic stuff I'd done before. And by that point, I was already at the Hoofdschule. And Wolfgang, the riding master, knew that I was looking for a horse for jousting. And he knew that one was for sale. And he went like, come with me, we're going to have a look at horses. And this horse reminded him of a horse of one of his old jousting comrades. And just by the looks of it, it just looked like a horse that he assumed to be brave. And that's why he told me to buy it. And it was just a very short-term thing. Oh, we'll get you through the season. And this horse had lots of issues and lots of problems, and I had to teach it from scratch. And that is still the horse, my grey horse Maximilian, that I still use primarily today. And so we've been doing everything together for 15 years now. And hopefully for some time to come.
Yeah, and I can just add that Maximilian is the horse who was inspiration for Laura, who is painter, and when there is a detail at you, the Maximilian is with you even here in studio. And by the way, it's you on him. So, yeah. And whoever is coming for June clinic and for the summer solstice celebration, I think we'll have chance again to see him personally, because it's very nice to see you both in the armor, in that arrangement of summer solstice idea. Yeah, but come a little bit back to your story, because, I know that we spent already some time together, that your life wasn't easy all the time, that you have some life time that you were, almost on the street. And I know that now you have a castle, and there is something happened in between, which must be interesting, how it became, that you really, and especially in my eyes, you turn to be really knight, because you live in the castle, and part of your living is because of jousting and tournaments, So how it happened?
Yeah, so of course I hasten to add, I'm not really a knight as such, because I don't have a title. I know people who have titles, and I have a great deal of respect for that. And I am fortunate enough to have benefited from people with titles that have supported me over the years. I've served the Queen of England, technically, in distance, but technically.
So did you saw her?
Once, and I've met Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands. I've had a chance to be of a little service here and there, and a bit more closely with the Princess of Schaubenklip. Of course, we were at court. It's the Hofreitschule. And still, of course, I got a lot of help from people that I've met, and that it is so important to realize that these people wanted to give me a gift. And then when you learn something, like for instance at the Hofreitschule, when you learn for years, not every day is going to be nice. Not every day is going to be easy, because learning is up to me. It's my journey to learn. And the effort in learning is part of the learning. So I should still recognize as a student that I still need to be thankful also for the hard days. In fact, I would like to say that the hard days were probably the days that taught me the most. And that's a gift. It's just a gift that you need to respect. And I think, yes, I left on the streets. I had nothing. When I was 16, I ran away from home, and some reasons and things that happened, and long stories.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is that building up from nothing, you do appreciate the little things. You appreciate having food every day. That's not an obvious thing. That is something that society is nice enough to give you. And just like your horse doesn't, without you, your horse doesn't have food every day. So it's this thing like understanding the dependency on people around you, on things around you, actually helps you understand your horse, your dog, whatever, people around you. So it allowed me to kind of develop a little bit, bit by bit. And at some point, I bought a very cheap house that just so happens to have been a seat of a knight back in the 15th century. Yes. I mean, you want to call it a castle, it's a schloss, yes, I suppose, but only on paper. It's just a house. But the only thing is that I got to buy it very cheaply. So it's just a way to have horses in the garden and be able to do that, which I always wanted. So I just feel very thankful that I can do that now, and I can support other people like I was supported once before, and be able to teach them in a way that you have this daily work together. And that is also this thing, like when you get given a gift like I was given by the Krishkas, but also by others, then there's a responsibility to give that gift along. The good writing must go into the world. Yeah, well, that's important.
Very nice philosophy. And by the way, we ran. I had Jeff Sanders here a few days ago, and we talked about it, how the vaqueros was famous for not sharing the information. They were kind of keep it inside the families, to be better than others. It was just kind of business secret. So I'm very glad that Jeff and even you doing the thing that you sharing the knowledge, because it's very important. Yeah, I was lucky that I could spend few nights at your home in your castle, because it's still more and more turning to real castle, and it's still in progress. Especially at the time I was there, But I saw that it's clearly visible which rooms are the most important for you, or I figure out, or for your like fencing or dancing spot, the room with your armory with the horse, the statue of the horse with the armor. It was amazing. And then I think most of all was the library. It was amazing, and I immediately figured out, how serious you are with all the thing, which leads me even, your style, how you dressed. It's something, kind of unique, which, how did you figure out that, I never saw you, in the different suite, than in the suite?
I mean, you need to wear something, I suppose. And I started wearing a suit in high school. It was actually very silly. It's because I saw a film by Quentin Tarantino, and we thought it was cool. And that's why I started wearing a black suit. Yeah. And so I've always liked black, because I was a bit into sort of metal and Gothic stuff, so black is cool. So that's how black and suit came about. But of course, then when you are around horses, around representation, you do need to represent yourself, but not only yourself, also the people around you, the systems, the schools. You need to represent. And as somebody once told me, you're always on parade. And this is kind of important. You know, when you're working with a horse, it's so easy to have the way you treat the horse at home and the way you treat the horse when people are watching.
Yeah.
I make a point of having my riding arena next to a fence that every villager that wants to come, they just come by and watch me work with my horses. They could watch everything I do every day. Nothing can be hidden. And I think that's kind of important. You're always on parade. Every single breath I take with my horse should be something that I don't have to hide, something that I don't have to think about. It should be good. It should be something that I'm happy to show somebody. Why should I want to hide anything? And something to do with dressing in a way that you can represent, making that little effort, putting on your tie and going, right, I have a responsibility today.
Yeah.
Means that you kind of pull yourself together and do what you should do.
It's very nice. You know, you really inspire me in many things, and kind of what you're wearing, it's very important. In many things, it can be just materials. You know, I'm really planning the podcast with lady who is that's sewing the things, Taylor.
Taylor,
yeah.
Yes.
So we prepared a collection for our project. You know, and in very basic, you are who inspired the thing. The thing that if you look better, you write better because you put some extra pride into that, and it's very necessary. And you know, there is a lot of things we can I think we can, have all the podcasts about the clothing. And it's not, on the very first look, it looks like it's kind of like a high mind thing or so. But it really it isn't. It's just philosophical thing, And then second, like the things with your military code, because I will get some as well. And these were rough felt.
Yeah.
And when you look down, it scratches you underneath.
Yeah.
It helps you with your
yes,
posture.
with your posture, yes. And this is interesting, in sartorial circles, so head tailoring circles, like proper gentleman's clothing. There's the concept of sprezzatura, how you should wear a suit, how you walk into a room with a presence. This word, sprezzatura, is also used in the Renaissance already for fencing posture and riding posture. So your clothes can help you, remind you of posture, and that posture can help you ride better, lighter, freer, softer, and more successfully. So dressing for the way you want to ride really does help physically, technically. But also it reminds you a little bit of the attitude that you should have as well. So it goes together.
Yeah, and I think it's a very nice bridge to the next kind of chapter, which is your style of training, because it's also unique. We are cooperating with some trainers, mostly you, Jeff, Wolfgang, and each of you has some different attitude, but. We have, internal kind of nickname for everybody. We can whisper behind your backs, but you earn the title of a master of the seat, of Lord of the hamstrings, because the hamstring was I think, very first, thing we work together on. But what I want to say, it's you using a unique concept of dancing. Maybe you are not the only one, but you are the only one who really using that and meaning that and using for all the writings. How did you get into that concept?
Well, I suppose what is the specific thing about what I do with dancing that perhaps other people don't do, even if they recognize that riding can be like dancing and maybe should be like dancing. This is often mentioned and kind of left as a concept. And I try to go into the details of the technicalities of dancing to use as a mechanism to actually move the horse. So if I enjoy a little bit of dabbling with Argentinian tango. And Argentinian tango is a dance that is very much based on the lead of how to lead another human being, lead and be led. And the mechanism in which you do that is very interesting and often is described in extremely vague terms. Oh, you use your energy to direct. And well, once you know what that means, that is very true. But this word is this really vague term.
Yeah.
So I try to be less vague. And the reason that I get to do that is because I also do martial arts. So probably the most obvious example would be Aikido, where you use the movement of your opponent and shape it into something you want it to be. Hey, you don't go against them too much. You mostly take them along and do something to them in the martial arts. Now, these mechanisms are very well known in wrestling and things like that, and how that works. And those are also present in dancing. So in martial arts, you try to take someone's balance. In dancing, you want to build someone's balance. But you use the same mechanism, one for bad and one for good. Now, because I do both of those things in my free time, I'm aware of how to use them for bad and how to use them for good. And I choose to use them for good with my horse. But by being aware of how these mechanisms work, it becomes easier to be technical in explaining how to use the lead of the dance in a way that will help you control your horse, steer it, but also in how to build up your horse's confidence, enjoyment, and how to not necessarily only have to work with punishment and the removal of punishment, or reward and the removal of reward. Yes, that's a behavioral system that obviously we all use, but there is more than just that. There is movements I can control without the horse understanding, and that allows me to get through things that might be difficult for the horse to understand. And then he's already done it, and then I can go, oh, wasn't that nice? And the horse can agree. And that in itself can be, of course, a reward in and of itself, but you can have the horse achieve things without it having to understand. And this is a huge benefit to your whole training system. And this is something that is perhaps not discussed as much as the behavioral Pavlovian or plus P and all those things. Of course, they exist, but we talk about those a lot. And I try to talk about the fascial reactions, the biomechanical reflexes that we can also use to get to make a horse do something, which is actually making it more effortless and potentially more enjoyable for the horse. So this is where I use dance in a very technical way. In order to be able to do those things. And this is also why I end up in seat, so why I know that posture is important. And that also allows you to use your riding as body work, as physiotherapy, more easily, because you, in order to get the technique that you need to lead the dance, you learn so much around your own body and around the horse's body that you will have an easier job of managing the development in a constructive, holistic way.
Oh yeah, it's one of the most interesting concept I ever heard. Because I'm not super friendly with things around the feelings. Some trainers using these catchphrases, to cover whatever. But on the other hand, the feeling is, of course, important part of the training. But the dancing connects this thing. The idea of feeling is there, very obviously. But on the other hand, it can help the people, sometimes something is too difficult, these muscle groups you are using sometimes, if you are not a body worker,
Sure.
You can get lost. But the dancing, especially, we try together, here in the evening, it's usually it's a part of our clinics, especially just, to get the ideas shortly. Hey, there is many things hidden inside, because we're sharing the partners, you are, everybody's kind of shy. And it's the same when you sit on the, new horse you never ride before. It's the same thing. You don't know him, the kind of playing, it's very nice. And it's funny that sometimes you're leading, but suddenly you are led, that you have to take your, lead back again. And it's funny, some girls are stiffer and maybe more shy. You have a power or benefit to relax her, no, trust me. It's really, that's why I'm asking, because that's really amazing thing, which helped me a lot. how long are you teaching to finish that chapter of your teacher?
Oh, good question. I don't really know. I think my first ever lesson was not long before my first ever clinic. I think so. My first writing lesson that I gave was like 14, 15 years ago or something, and then it kind of took off. I mean, I've been teaching martial arts for 30 years or so, but so I used to teaching. But the writing teaching, I postponed a long time. I did a fair bit of writing before I really ever taught anything serious, anything that can be called a writing lesson. And I think there's a good reason why maybe I teach a bit different than a lot of people, because I didn't just want to repeat the phrases that I was given. Because especially the sort of standard things, write him forwards, get contact, all those usual phrases. I think all of these phrases have an initial good meaning, but they have been used so much that they change. What does contact even mean? Well, once upon a time it meant something very good. Nowadays people think it means pulling. I think that's a really obvious thing that it's not supposed to mean that, but you kind of get taught to make it mean that anyway. And this is very detrimental. And I think that we can all think of a lot of examples of this. So I took a long time to get to the point that I even wanted to try to teach, because I needed to have enough understanding to actually go like, maybe I should rephrase almost all of these things. And then once I started doing that, I tried to explain it in whatever way the student might be able to understand. So if I'm working with a physiotherapist, I'll start talking about Latin muscle names, and then somebody else on the side goes, "What?" Well, yeah, sure, but somebody else that I know to be a professional dancer, I will try to use examples from dance for them to understand what they already know and how they can apply it to the horse. I've done so with pilots, where I used movements of the aircraft to explain things that we wanted out of the horse. And so I try to take their reference frame and then make it easier for them to understand things of the horse, and then fill in what blanks we still have left.
Yeah, and this leads me to the next question I have, because I know that you are very busy, man. You running and flying all over the world. I think you've been like in the United States like a few days before. You're flying literally all around the world. You are busy. But when I met you very first time as a student, and teacher, I immediately recognized that your level of enthusiasm is, it's different level than other trainers. I was actually very surprised how hard you trying, to teach some, not so, for example, talented riders, that you really trying from left, from, above, under, and, from every direction you can. And because I know that how busy you are, I always wanted to ask you, where are you, taking your power? How do you relax?
Well, first of all, I believe that as I suppose a collective, like the Hofreitschule and various other alternative riding styles, we need to help each other bring good riding into the world. And this is something that when I was fortunate enough to be allowed to be taught by Wolfgang and Christine Krischke, they said that. They didn't make me promise, but I felt I had promised. And thereby, why would I deny somebody a chance to learn? Somebody came to learn. Now, some people are easier to teach. The famous martial arts phrase is your cup full or is your cup empty? If you come with a cup full of water, I can't pour anything in. And a lot of people have lots of ideas that are very stuck on there. And that means that their cup is very full. Now, this is much more difficult for me as a teacher to try and start with and reset their paradigm, reset their ideas. Yes, of course, that's more difficult. But it's my problem, not their problem. Now, to some degree, they need to at some point come along and do their thing. Like I said, I had to learn. I have to work for learning if I'm a student. However, I want to interest them in learning. I want to interest them in getting to the point of doing the work of learning. And this is why I try to be patient, and I feel a duty try at least to be patient and to find a way that it's easy for the student to accept. Now, I can't do miracles, but I can try. And the other thing is that I need to take every lesson anew. So every lesson starts, and I need to take a deep breath and start my concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter how long the day is. I have a job to do. And I think this again comes down to, my earlier life. Things get a lot harder than being a riding instructor. I can tell you that much. So I have a very fortunate life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many people who have been through far harder things than myself. And yes, of course, I should just knuckle down and get on with it. It's just my job.
Yeah, it's well deserved that. It must be said. Well, art of writing, that concept, I wonder what you will answer me if I ask you, try to describe me art of writing. What does it mean to you?
So when you think of art, it is expressing yourself in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are many things that are still underlying art. If you want to paint, you need to understand how paint works.
Yeah.
You want to express within the limits of the medium. Now, when you start getting into movement art, which writing is.
Or dancing.
Or dancing, yes. If I want to express the music as a dancer, I have an idea of expression. So does my dance partner.
Mm-hmm.
So what is really important, I think, is to not get stuck in the idea of self. I mean, art can be very ego-based. If you just think of expressing yourself, that wouldn't be right for writing art.
Mm-hmm.
It's as much the ability of the horse to feel free to express their
Mm-hmm.
ego as much as your own. And it is this development of the connection, short-term, long-term, and letting it grow. It's a bit like a bonsai tree.
Mm.
The bonsai tree grows, and you guide it, and you
Yes.
do things, but the tree still does its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to think of it as growing a flower. Let it flower.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by having deliberate ambitions that you allow to flower, you can make beautiful things. You can enjoy a great deal. But all good art has not just an artistic side, but also an artisan's side. So if you think of somebody who builds a beautiful house, well, there's lots of nails and nuts and bolts, and it needs to stay up, and it needs to not collapse under the snow. You have lots of responsibility in building that house, but it can be a run-of-the-mill house, or it can be a beautiful house.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you want to build a beautiful house, but it still needs to be structurally sound and by the rules, and somebody needs to be able to live in it, and somebody is enjoying it, and things like that. So it is allowing yourself, if I may say so, not to be too arrogant to think it's all about you and your expression. It is about doing a job and then enjoying bringing some of your individuality into it and allowing the horse to bring their individuality into the structural sound job that needs doing.
Yeah, it's, and it's kind of, it can be very intimate art as well. I can feel it as a student and a writer, especially at the clinics, everybody has, kind of fear in the stomach to go, present his art, to others. So, it's a very nice thing, Yeah, I like the flowers. I will work on that. But last thing from that chapter, Arne, as a teacher, is your most the word you are using the most, and it's nahoru. It's in Czech uphill, or what does it mean?
Yes.
Up. You saying nahoru all the time. Why is this word such important for your training system?
The thing that we hear, again, if you think of the usual way to learn to ride, for instance, one of these things you hear a lot of people say is sit deep.
Mm-hmm.
and Naharu is kind of almost the exact opposite.
Yeah, it is.
And I didn't make that up. I mean, it's a translation of a translation. It's like my wording that then was translated into Czech, and I ran with it because you taught me that word. And the idea of going up is to unify the horse up into the saddle. Mm-hmm. So the horse should take its movement and bring it to the rider, bring its posture and bring it to the rider. And this has to do with the idea of sprezzatura, that the rider should accept in their seat the posture and movement of the horse, and then be able to take that and give it a direction. Mm-hmm. This gives a freer motion. This makes it much easier to get to collection. It's just less effort for the horse to do more fancy things, if you will. But also the basis, the basic exercises become just as much better. So it allows you to see what the horse needs. You have a broader choice because there's less restriction to do the same exercises. So by bringing the horse up to the seat, you don't need as much influence of restriction. You don't need to drive so much. You can take the existing motion and shape it. And then we can also drive a little bit and restrict a little bit here and there, but much more subtle, just to kind of put the dot on the I and finish the job that we started in our seat.
Yeah, I maybe imagine that like eject, and in the fighter jet, when something is like terrible wrong, you still have the Naharu thing,
Yeah.
And when we talk before we start, we kind of think that this could be or can be a bridge to Lusitanos, breed which are kind of they need a lot of Naharu. Especially, I remember the advice, for example, on trailer ride, when they start to be hot, run fast. So you will not stop them by the bit, no way. Mm-hmm. But if you bring them up, it helps. Which, again, thank you for that advice. And the Lusitano breed, changed my life. And you have also the Lusitano. So we have, again, something common. And the idea of dance, if I, to turn back into that thing, it's very, very useful for that breed, because this breed is kind of special, It's just the kind of weird mix of sensitivity, power, laziness, stubbornness, brightness. It has, almost everything. A very nice mixture, It's a very nice spice mixture. So to have a question... because again, you are the master of the seat, that leads me to idea of allow and not force, or maybe definitely you must allow before you ask for something.
Yeah.
Did this grow up from the breed of Lusitanos or not really?
Okay, lots of things. So the Lusitano breed, of course, is very heavily influenced by the bullfighters and their style of riding, the necessity.
Děkujeme, že jste s námi vydrželi až sem. Pokud vás tady dnešní host a jeho příběh zaujal, to nejlepší vás teprve čeká. Pokračování tohoto podcastu najdete na platformě Forendors pod názvem Schola Artium Equestrium.